There we are.
Yep, Maya.
All right, guys. Look, as every I should say month, this is Paddles Up was a new initiative which we wanted to put together, I guess, to upskill our members in the areas that they highlighted as a need of upskilling identified in the various checklists or the health checks that we've actually undertaken. Paddles Up will occur usually the first week of every month, but last week we had Melbourne Cup, so we decided to push it back a week. But we'll take these important topics and apply that to upskill our members as best as possible. Paddles Up will take a challenging topic and try and make sense of it and give you practical tips on how to apply it to your club. So tonight it's another relevant one, obviously, and it will help create short and long-term club and brand awareness goals for your club. So tonight we're talking all things social media and how to leverage it and to ultimately build your club. And tonight we've got our subject matter expert is Jade Murphy-Silva. Jade is the social media manager at the Commonwealth Bank, where she drives employee advocacy, content strategy, and manages campaigns. Jade's an avid dragon boater and a current board member on the DBNSW board and paddles for Pacific Dragons. And albeit a short season, she was successful, and well done, Jade, on the 2020 New South Wales State Premier crew. When not paddling, we'll find Jade travelling to Queensland, where she was born and raised, to be with the family, especially with her niece and nephews. And we won't hold the origin against you, although you won the last one. But Jade, welcome.
Thank you, Shane. And thank you everyone for dialing in today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you can take something out of it. So just give me one moment and I will start sharing my screen with the presentation with you all. With me. This is always the technical difficulties. You would expect that the social media person would be all over this, right? All right, just let me know if you guys can see anything.
To you.
Can you only see me? Okay, obviously not working.
Let us know, Jade, if you need us to do it.
We should be good to go. Here we are. Thanks for your patience, everyone. So I'm going to be taking you through how to build your club's presence and engagement on social media. I do want to, just level with you all. I understand that social media is an absolute beast, but when it's tamed, it can absolutely just help your club grow and improve your presence and your awareness as well amongst other clubs, and not just other clubs but other sports, those indirect and direct competitors. So it's a really valuable tool, and I hope that you can take a few great insights from today that you can put into action for your club. I do want to be quite honest and transparent that we won't be going into how to write a post or how to post a post. But if that's something that you've got a question on, definitely pop it into the chat function. We can address it in the Q&A after. And also I can have a yarn with Shane about, what other resources can we drum up for you guys if that's what you're looking for, and how to actually create a post and share it as well. What we will be going over today, and what I hope that you'll be able to take out of this session, is more why you should be active on social media, how to build your audience and that engagement on social media as well, and what content to create and deliver to that audience. And the reason I've structured it out this way is that by understanding the why, and particularly coming out of COVID, is incredibly important. And before you get into, creating content and posts and things like that, you need to understand what is relevant to your audience, what are they looking for, and how do you kind of build your brand in this particular space. So we'll kick it right off with the why. So I've got 3 great reasons as to why you guys should be on social media, but most importantly, I want you guys to get into the mindset of being a small business, because you guys are. When you think about it, you're a sporting organisation delivering a service to a wide community. Businesses do this all the time, and if you get into that business mindset, you'll have a different approach to the way that you position your content to people and kind of what those key messages are. But most of all, out of this quote, what you'll take out of it is that social media is one of the most cost-effective ways to drive marketing and reach. It's a great opportunity to kind of get, as I say, eyeballs and ears onto your content, whereas other ways, more traditional ways, can be, more expensive. So getting into those 3 reasons why. First of all, consumer behavior. So we're all very much aware of the big C word, right? COVID. Coming out of COVID, consumer behaviour is slightly changing, but in terms of how people are searching and finding different things, it hasn't changed at all. 57% of people, when they're looking for a new product or a service, will go towards social media to research up on that. So when you consider that in a social media, in a paddling context, people are going to be going to your social media channels or looking for them if they don't exist to see what kind of content you're sharing, what kind of club is this, what can they offer me. Also, another thought is that when you look at who we're trying to target, our sport is quite diverse. We are also looking to drive up our Prem category, which is, funnily enough, millennials. So millennials sit within that 22 to 37-year-old category, right in that Prems area. And of millennials, 47% of them will make a decision on their purchases based on social media. So when you think about if that's your target audience, you need to make sure that you have a really active and consistent presence. And that doesn't mean that you have to be sharing every day. We'll get into that shortly. But it does mean that you need to have a consistent approach because people are coming to those pages and they're looking for that content. Another reason is competitors. So it's more, this is just to stay on top of what are other people doing. And I'm not just saying other dragon boat clubs. This is other sports as well. Surf ski, an example that I have here is the Sydney Harbour Surf Club. They're very active on social media. They have a really great following. They're really quite engaged. You want to see what they're doing because they're indirectly competing against yourselves as well. And obviously for the people who are in the regional areas, this is just a Sydney example, but I'm sure there are other indirect sports who you'd be competing against within your regions as well. And finally, sponsors and sponsorships. So if you guys already have sponsors, fantastic, that's great. Here's how you can add value to that relationship and hopefully continue that ongoing relationship as well. You can create a lot of return on investment in social media. Facebook in particular, which is also owns Instagram, has great insights that you can learn on how your content is performing if you have a business account, which if you do, most group pages are a business account. You'll be able to learn what content performs, how it, what was the reach, who engaged with it, things like that, which is all valuable to those sponsors. And in particular, small businesses who are starting out and wanting to tap into that particular community. Let's say, for example, you're paddling in Blackwattle Bay and a new cafe is opened up. Let's say you want to exchange some value there. You're sharing a post of their content or, having a coffee catch up after training or something like that. Whilst it's not a sponsor just yet, you are, by sharing that content, you're adding value to that relationship. Sorry if everyone could just go on mute, thank you. And another area is kind of linking into that in terms of sponsorship is it's a great opportunity if you're trying to create sponsorship relationships. If you have a really great presence and engaged audience on social media, that's now an opportunity to include that within that sponsorship relationship and leveraging that as well. So that's the 3 reasons why: consumer behaviour, people are looking for this information, competitors staying on top of what's happening out in the market, and sponsorship. Moving into what is really important is building your audience and the engagement of that audience as well. It's all great to be putting out great content, but if no one's engaging with it, the way the algorithms work on the different platforms, no one's going to see it. So how do we build that engaging content and that audience? So these are 3 main areas. Of course, like I said earlier, social media is a beast. There's heaps of resources and other tips out there, but these are 3 that I find incredibly important and that you might find value in. And speaking of value, value is critical in creating engaging content. What value does your content deliver to your audience? Do you know what content performs? And when I'm talking value here, I don't mean you're giving out money or, come and join our club for 5% off if you like this post kind of value. I'm talking about intrinsic value. An example that I have here is UQ Sport. They're University of Queensland. Of course, I'm a Queenslander. I'm going to give a Queensland example. But I think they're a really great example as to how they deliver valuable content, and they do it quite seamlessly and easy. It looks very professional as well. So if you have a look on Instagram for these guys, because that's where they best perform, looking at their profile, they have all the content that that they'll be talking on. There's tennis, pool, track. They have their hashtags that they use so people can easily search that, and linking out to valuable content as well. So how to book into sessions, etc. What I find really valuable about UQ Sport is that they're using the highlights feature within Instagram. So once you post a story, you can save that as a highlight, which is those purple circles. And the content they have in there is what's really valuable. It makes it really accessible for people. Stories are only alive for 24 hours, but you can save them into your highlights for forever. And the great thing about it is, things like timetable or a day in the life of. If you think of this as a paddler, if your club had a similar thing, a day in the life of a paddler, they're able to click into that story, into that highlight, and see what do paddlers get involved in, what is it like to be a paddler of a specific club. And going a little bit deeper, I highly encourage you to look onto their account later on. If you have a scroll through, they kind of follow this rule of threes. 3 is a fantastic number. It makes people remember things, and it's nice and consistent. And if you look at the kind of flow of Instagram, it's a grid, so it's rows of threes. So it works perfectly. And the way they do this is they share something humorous. So they'll often have a meme, but in their own branding, typically like a funny quote about exercise, like cardio or something like that. Then they'll include something of value to that audience. And this is what I really love. Often we think we need to share posts of us out on the water, but what else do we think about paddlers in their everyday lives? What will help make them a better paddler or an athlete off the water? And that could come down to diet. So UQ Sport here, they share recipes, and really great recipes for athletes to be, consuming as they're on their athlete journey. And that also adds value back to that audience as well, because they're getting a little bit of, content off it that they can actually use in their everyday life. And then, of course, final but not least, they share a piece of content about the sport as well, which is what you want. So that kind of rule of 3, something humorous, showing the brand, adding value with the recipe, and then sharing the sport as well. Why this is also really important, it comes down to being really helpful when you're planning content. Often content can feel really overwhelming, but having a theme really helps you kind of break down what you can plan for, and it kind of takes the stress out of it. Moving on to encouraging participation. So this 81% of people who are making a purchase decision, so I'm bringing that purchase decision back into the conversation, 81% of people will make a purchase decision based on seeing what a friend has posted on social media. So when you think of that in a paddling context, an example I have here is of a paddler from ACCA Corporates. So they paddled with ACCA during corporate. She shared this great post, tagged KPMG, tagged ACCA, shared some great insights into it. Her friends now may go and see that and go, oh, you know what, I've always wanted to try dragon boating. And I can see Shirley here has posted this great post. I might give it a go and ask her, what was it like paddling with this particular team, and go from there. So this is where encouraging people to share content is really important, because people in the trust economy and in the rely on social proof. And social proof is what a brand says is great, but they'll believe it more if someone else says it on behalf of that brand. And this is where Shirley's post is fantastic. And how you encourage people can either be through incentivizing, and it doesn't have to be monetary incentivizing. It can be within your club. Whoever shares the best content each month gets reshared by the club. That is incentivizing the club, incentivizing members as well. And moving on to investment. So investment doesn't just have to be monetary. Investment is time, and in particular, consistent organic content. So I'll take a step back, sorry. Organic and paid content are terms that we use all the time in my organisation and all the time in social media. As it is, organic content is something that is natural, there's no paid behind it. You kind of pop it up into your newsfeed and see if it works. With paid, you're putting money behind it and it's going out to a targeted audience. With organic content, often, like if you're giving a commercial example where you have quite a large following, if I put something out organically, I don't know exactly who's going to receive that. It's most likely going to be people who follow me. But if I put some money behind it, I'm going to go out and target an audience that I want to receive that message. Where that kind of comes into importance as a club is that organic content can absolutely thrive, but it needs to be invested in with time. You need to understand what works and what doesn't, when share, what times of sharing works, who your audience is as well. And Facebook, which a lot of you would say is where your majority of your presence is going to be, is great for this. They have some really great, easy analytics to understand in the back end in the business manager area. And so you'll be able to easily understand after some consistent sharing what works, what doesn't, and planning your content accordingly. The other thing is investing time and money. That is the best of both worlds. And you can boost posts. So after a while of monitoring what content works and you see that particular areas do well, you can boost posts. My only kind of guidance with that one, particularly for these smaller business pages, is that you're not boosting out to people who already follow your page. If people, particularly for messages that are about, joining or trialing the club, people who follow your page are already most likely going to be members. So if you're going out to them with that kind of message, it doesn't make sense. So looking at your targeting, are you targeting people who are interested in similar sports or different sports? So it might be rugby or swimming or something like that. But all in all, test and learn, give it a go. So moving on, we're going to go into, now we've understood how to create engagement and building that audience, we're going to move into creating content. So I do warn you, this is a big slide. It was more for you guys to read through afterwards to take more value out of, but we'll chat through it now. So creating content and the keys to great content is important. So I have, of course, used an example from my club of a piece of content that I absolutely loved, and I'll get to that in a second. But the kind of keys and the top areas that you need to be looking at is planning, creating, community, and adapting. So when it comes to planning, like I said before, in terms of the rules of three, quality over quantity all the time. Allocate, to make it easier, allocate specific days for specific content. So you might theme it Move Mondays or Mobility Mondays. Like I said before, how are you adding value back to your audience? So if you did Mobility Mondays, for example, you're going to share tips on how paddlers should be stretching, particularly thinking about also the current environment. People are working from home. If you're a club who has a lot of corporates, like as a corporate feeder club, you've got people who are working from home majority now and aren't in the office with ergonomical chairs and desks. So they're probably feeling a little bit more creaky these days. Giving them value and content of, how to be mobile, how to stay safe while working from home so that when they get back on the boat, they're still safe when they keep that movement up is great. It's adding value to them. And it's also helping them in a lot of ways as well. So coming back to that quality over quantity, theme your days can be really helpful. And do your research, test and learn. These are just guides and principles, but ultimately you will find that different audiences react to different things and just see what works for you and your club. Other ways for great content and planning out content, look at social trends and pop culture. So this is where my example from Pacific Dragons comes from. Earlier this year, in the thick of COVID, there was a toilet roll outage that we all kind of experienced for some odd reason that was happening. But we decided to have a bit of fun with it. We saw an example over in Canada where a club was doing whack-a roll. So using the paddles to whack a toilet paper roll around and basically connecting all the videos together to kind of look like we were all passing it along and creating a challenge out of it and passing it over to another club. This was a really successful video. We put no money behind it, but it got some really great engagement. I think it was our most engaging video to date. And it just really worked. So engaging in with those social trends and pop culture really works for content. It makes your club look more relevant and relatable to the general public outside of paddling. Also, think of key calendar dates. A pack that Shane will send out after or later this week to you all goes through some guidelines of social media and kind of how to plan content. And there's a great resource in there from Twitter, which is a calendar of the whole entire year of key national days, different holidays, international holidays. This is really easy content that you can just kind of grab on and make relate back to your club. And also important days to acknowledge, like NAIDOC week or Are You OK Day. And what I mean by those kind of key calendar dates as well is, for example, International Burger Day. does not relate to paddling at all, but it will relate to your audience a little bit, right? Everyone loves food. So if your team's, you know, National Burger Day is coming up, you added a team event, taking a photo, you know, great to be out with my club, Pacific Dragons, celebrating National Burger Day together after a training session. It kind of highlights that social side. It highlights that you kind of, you know, what's happening out in the world, and it brings back to the club as well. And user-generated content as well. This is what I said earlier. If you encourage participation, you encourage your team and your club to share content, that's free content that you can go and share and repurpose. And often that's a struggle that I hear from people, is that I don't know how to create content, or I don't have the time to create content. That's fine. Ask your club to participate and share their photos and videos. It's easy, and they get a bit of a kick out of it as well when it's getting shared more broader than just their own network. Moving on to creating content. So I know I said I wouldn't go into how to create a post, but these are some key tips on when you are creating your content to consider. So first of all, one key message only, and keep it short. And what I mean by one key message is that you don't have a really long post that people need to read through, that's quite long and truncated. We keep it under about 150 characters, should always be your aim, and that ensures that your message isn't being truncated. And the example that I've got there from Pacific Dragons, you'll see what I mean by truncated. There's the more little button. If you just click that, that will drop down the rest of the content. To kind of stop that from happening, which is the best thing to do, because user behavior on the platform is to not click for more and just keep scrolling. If you think about how you scroll through social media, I know I've just got a really fast thumb. It just keeps going and going and going until I see something to stop on. So that's something to consider. Have a really clear call to action. Is the call to action to comment below something? Is it to join them at trialing? Is it to make sure you sign up to race day? Things like that. Very clear, simple call to action, and not having multiple is key. Include media-rich content as well. Your videos, your images. This is so critical for sharing that kind of club culture and club life as well. Tagging members and sponsors and using hashtags where relevant. So doing this ensures that other people see the content. It'll come up into their news feeds and their friends will go and see it. Hopefully they'll share it as well. If you have a club hashtag, that's fantastic. Put that on everything, encourage people to use it. Share stories. And I don't mean sharing Facebook stories or Instagram stories, the placement itself. I more mean sharing the paddler stories. Where has your club come from? Who is, when you've got club announcements, a new club president, tell us about that person, share it on social media. And in this kind of case, you don't have to worry about the whole 150 characters rule. They're there to be a little bit more open and to share that story. You just want to make sure it's engaging throughout. And if you want any examples as to how to do that kind of well, I know there is a Humans of Paddling Instagram account, but a go-to is Humans of New York. If you are familiar with it, it's all about sharing beautiful stories of random strangers. So, and you just kind of fall in love with them. So I would give that a go if you want to look at how to tell a story on social media. And Shane, here's my favorite one, make content easily with Canva. So Canva is an incredible tool if you aren't already familiar with it. A lot of people, like I said earlier, find it hard to make content. People think that you need to be a graphic designer or know how to use Photoshop to create content. That is not the case anymore. Canva is amazing. It can be used free, but if you're wanting access to kind of all of the really premium items, you do need to pay a fee for it. But they have great templates, all easily ready set up, and you just need to kind of change to your brand colors, add images. It's very intuitive and easy to use. Highly recommend to create professional content that is effortless. And then moving into community. So what I mean by community is a few things here. So it's encouraging your community to participate. So earlier I said, use generated content, asking people to share their videos, photos, etc. What I more mean with this is encouraging your community to participate in the content you're sharing. So when you're putting up a post, it might be, I'm going to bring it back to Mobility Mondays. You might put up a tip of, here's our tip on staying mobile while you're off the water. Does any, comment your, favorite stretch below, and that gives an invitation to people to then engage with that piece of content and give their tip and their advice in there as well. Why that's also important is that having that consistent comments and engagement in your post, then when it comes to the social media algorithm, will keep pushing that up into people's feeds, which is what you want. So engagement is critical, and inviting people to engage is important. Establishing a team hashtag and encouraging tagging the club. You don't have to have, a flashy team hashtag, but this does become important when you're wanting to kind of constantly share content or find content as well related to the club that people are sharing if they're not tagging you. And also engage with your community. So this isn't just your members or other paddler communities. It can also be other clubs, local businesses, other sports as well that could be relevant or relatable. And by engaging, I don't mean you have to go and share their posts. That may not make a lot of sense. But what it could be is just that simple commenting and engagement. I often see it on Instagram really well between clubs, actually. But what I'd recommend is that keep doing that. It's really important. It helps them boost up. It also gives, by your name being on there as well, when other people are commenting, they're going to see your club name as well. So keep it up, and often you'll find that people will return the favor and do the same back to your content as well. And finally, on great keys to great content is adapting. So I've mentioned a few times testing and learning. This is important. See what content is performing and what isn't. What's not performing, stop it. What is performing, keep working on that. And an example I'll give you is that I was looking actually in the back end the other day of Pacific Dragon's performance, and I saw that video content is what performs the best for us. So it doesn't mean I'm going to stop not posting just image posts. But it means that looking at that video content, how do I improve it? Social media, for example, is a sound off environment. So that means people will often watch a video with no sound. How do we improve the accessibility of that? Can I add captions to the video? Things like that. How can I ensure that if someone is listening with sound off, they're still going to keep watching that video to completion? Because that's another thing with videos, is that often people don't watch it to the full end on social media. They'll watch maybe the first kind of 3 seconds or something like that. So how do I keep them watching? Adapting the content to each platform as well. For example, Instagram story is very different to what I would be sharing as a Facebook post, or Twitter versus Facebook. Twitter I haven't seen used very popular amongst clubs, but Twitter is a great platform if you're wanting to share quick live updates. So for example, if your club is going to World Club Cruise, hopefully in the near future, guys, if it's overseas, is that if you're going over to that, you might want to be sharing quick, easy updates as to how your club is performing against the world. Twitter is great for that. It's 240 characters, quick, nimble posts to kind of get it out there. It is literally kind of just a rolling news feed. Facebook, though, you might want to share more engaging content, longer videos, or team albums, things like that. So adapt your content for each platform. Not everything belongs everywhere. And that's why it's also important to kind of choose your platforms wisely. And I've said this consistently, so I'll just keep saying it like a broken record, but monitor what works and adapt to your audience behavior. And what I mean by audience behavior is looking into those Facebook insights, looking at and seeing, okay, well, I know that if I post this post at Friday at 4:30 p.m. when everyone's clocking off, having a great time with friends, they're not going to be engaging with my content, and I kind of see that engagement drop off. But I'm better off at sharing a post at 10 a.m. on a Saturday right after training. That's when I see the most engagement. So that's what I mean by looking at when is your audience actually engaging, and that's going to help kind of plan out your content better and test and adapt. So we've covered why you should be on social media, how to engage with your audience, and what content you should be looking at and planning. We've covered a lot. I know I've kind of just verbally told you a whole lot of things. So if you've got any comments or any questions, pop them in below. But in summary, what I'd like you to take out of this is, first and foremost, be present and active. If you're not already on social media, get on there ASAP. Don't think you have to be across every single platform. I think there's hundreds and hundreds of social media platforms in the world. You don't have to be on all of them. Start simple, start on Facebook. It's always quite an easy one. It links easily up to Instagram if you want to broaden out to that later on. But the reason it's really important to be present and active, particularly coming out of COVID, is that if you were, let's say you were active up until about March, and that's when we stopped paddling, and then you haven't been active since, maybe you haven't been out in the water, but you're going to start up next weekend. Even people are looking for sports and looking to get back involved in their community. And if they kind of jump onto your Facebook group and they see that you haven't been active, they don't know if you're COVID safe, things like that, they're not going to engage with you, and they're more likely to go with a competing club or a competing sport. So being present and active is critical. Understand your value. I feel like I've hammered on about this, but this is what's really going to help build out your content and make that content planning a lot easier. Understand what are new recruits looking for in a sport. Are they looking for value for money? So therefore you might want to, maybe your club's reduced fees this year, or you might want to highlight that you've got a great new offer or something like that. Or maybe they're just looking for a community sport. They're looking for, building up those relationships. Again, COVID was a very isolating period, and people are probably looking back, connecting in with people. So does your sport do that? Of course it does. I love dragon boating. We're very social. But you want to highlight that as your club as well. What content would help your current members as well? So it's coming back to, stretching or diet or things like that. What valuable content can you put on your platform for your current members to engage in? But then also that might also help new recruits or other paddlers, things like that. And most of all, share content that relates to your club. This is incredibly important and relevant to your club and to what you're interested in as well. So don't share something that's just kind of like left of field. Leave that to your personal accounts. But also at the same time, think a bit creative and outside the box. How are you thinking about social trends and things like that, like I've touched on earlier. Encourage and engage. User-generated content is free and fantastic content that you can use, but engage with your members, comment on their stuff, like their stuff, follow them, and also encourage people to leave reviews as well is really critical. Quality over quantity. Aim for about 1 to 3 posts a week. That seems a bit overwhelming, but it is the sweet spot. I've talked to a lot of the platforms, and they all say when it comes to more your community groups or individual performance, particularly on LinkedIn, 1 to 3 is fantastic. Use Canva for on-brand, high-quality content that is low effort. But most of all, through all of this, be patient and adapt. Whether you're coming back to social media, you're an avid social media club, or you're just new to it completely, be patient and adapt. You'll notice that, performance is not going to happen overnight. You need to kind of constantly chip at it, but it will pay off. And then once it starts paying off, even as it is, looking at what is performing and continually adapt and, serve really relevant and relatable content to your audience. So that's me. Thank you very much for, your time today. It's been fantastic to have a chat. It's kind of odd, I have to say, just only hearing my voice. But we'll now head into Q&A. I'll pass it over to Shane, but if you do have any questions, pop it in the chat.
Yeah, guys, Jade, sorry, I'm going to throw some questions at you.
Definitely.
But again, if you do have any questions, throw it in that chat box or just write it down, because there is going to be an opportunity to actually jump in. Jade, you mentioned before in the previous slide, don't, post anything left field. I guess are you referring to, just a personal comment that you sort of, if you're in charge of that sort of account? Because we've got, there's Origin tomorrow night, and you mentioned the burger one, for example. In your opinion, do you think like linking that back in to your sort of brand? Use Burger Day, for example, like if it's International Burger Day, hey, go grab a burger and then paddle it off at our club. Are you talking like use it sort of that way? Like try and link the two?
Yeah, definitely. You want to find that kind of common ground and that common link between the content. When I mean left of field, it's more probably don't go on like a political rant or something, going on about Trump or something like that. That's completely left of field and doesn't relate to paddling at all.
Yeah.
But definitely when it comes to that more social, relevant, relatable content. If you can find a common link between the two that makes sense, definitely pursue it. State of origin, for example, if you can find a common ground. I think if, you built between DB&SW and the Queensland Association, if you guys had a really great kind of banter between each other, you'll see an example between, Queensland Police and New South Wales Police, typically around origin, is a great one. And how they kind of, banter off of each other of who's going to win and who's the better one. It's definitely, that is stuff to look into. It's fantastic.
I think we did one of the Queenslanders last year. They never got a bite back for obvious reasons. Yeah. I think we got up last year, if you recall, Jade. Just in terms of, you mentioned before 1 to 3, I guess, posts a week with consistency. Like, when is too much? And when's not enough? Because I notice if DB&SW doesn't post frequently, when you do happen to post something, I notice that the reach and engagement doesn't go as far, as opposed to hitting that sweet spot. And conversely, if I post too much, the same sort of thing happens. I have noticed, within that middle ground, that's where we get the most engagement and also the most, the most reach. But I mean, what 1 to 3, but when is too much and when's too little?
When is too much? So I'd first just kind of give a bit of background to the algorithm. So obviously I don't work for Facebook or anything like that, or any of the platforms, but based on my role and how I've kind of shared content even personally and what I've seen based on performance, is that the way the algorithm works is that the people, when you share a piece of content, the platform's constantly looking for either the content that people are going to engage in, and that they'll keep pushing that up and through the newsfeed. So if more people engage, it's going to keep coming up. But then also people who are regular content contributors as well, they're going to push that up because they know people will engage with that content. If they've previously gotten high engagement, you've shared again, we're going to push that through as well. But finding the balance between the two is important. Because as you said, Shane, if you share too much, that reach dips down as well, because Facebook will probably, or any of the platforms will see you as maybe spamming a bit. What I would say for any of the clubs is you kind of have to test the waters. In terms of too much, I would say every day is too much, double a day, too much. I think that's where you kind of get in a tricky period with when it comes to race day or those big event days, you want to share multiple content. I would err on the caution of doing that. Twitter is a great platform for that. It's built for constant and continuous updates. So you can kind of go for your life on that one. But when it comes to those more consumer-based channels like Facebook or Instagram, regular content, but I would say sticking to that kind of no more than like 4 to 5 at the absolute most a week is a lot.
Sure. And I guess there's probably, I've got a fair few actually, but you mentioned data. Data's really critical and we like to make informed decisions, but there's a lot of people out there. Facebook's a big beast behind, obviously huge beast, but even for the general user, it's quite big. And there is that insights tab within there, but there is within that, I know they've tried to, make it as simple as possible, but for the ones who's just, the general ad hoc posters, what should they be looking at when they're starting to look at this whole data thing? I know you mentioned before timings, and that was probably one of the key ones, but what else should we be looking at to make those informed decisions about when to post and types of posts?
When to post. So I would say in the Facebook Insights tab specifically, just the overview one to start off with is fine. If you start going through the other kind of tabs that are over there, there's like reach and, audience and demographics and things like that. If you're new to it, just kind of stick to the overview, which does, as it says, give a really good overview of when is your content best performing, who is seeing that. So who is your audience? Is it that kind of 45 to 65 category? Is it under 25? Things like that. That's a great way to start. And then from there, and once you get more comfortable going in and diving in deeper into the data, obviously it's not the best data in the world. It's not going to be like the pixel or anything like that. And apologies, I'm using social terms, but the pixel is basically a tracking piece of code that you can put into your platform with Facebook and see exactly how people are converted. That's for another paddles up session. But I'd say in this kind of case, sticking to the overview, very simple stuff. It'll give you a quick, top level insight into how is your content performing? And there is a great section. It just shows you, of this content this week, where is it performing? And it shows you reach, and reach is, how many people have seen that post, how much engagement there has been. And it will also give you valuable insights into, is video content performing better than static images or things like that.
Is there a chance you can stop sharing so I can probably see everyone? But
yes, I definitely can.
No, you're right. The other one is, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is paid and organic. When we are posting, and you mentioned recruiting, so we're trying to find new people. Mm-hmm. If we're not paying, we're effectively marketing to within our own market. So I don't want to say it's a waste of time, because it's not, but it's not hitting it's not maximizing its potential. Do you think when you're doing these posts, obviously, like say recruitment, right, that we should be looking at doing $10, $20, $30, to actually go out there? Because there's probably, there's so many ways we can make it work, but I've found that when it comes to the recruitment side, putting like $30 and narrowing your focus on which type of person can actually go a long way. And then as I make that a really long question, I had another one: the type of money you want to spend to the platform. Like if you're trying to find sponsors, is going on LinkedIn better to do that? If you're looking for younger people, is Instagram better? If you're looking for just call it, middle age, is Facebook the best place to put your money? So for, I guess, everyone online, and then when they watch it at home, when they're trying to recruit, what should they be paying? Should they be using paid advertising, and what platforms should they use? Is it dependent on the persona?
That is a big question, Shane.
Okay. It's going to require a long answer.
It is. So I break it down. So the first part of the question was, oh gosh, have to remind me now. That was a big question.
I think if we can do the first one, I guess paid when it comes to recruitment.
Yeah. So so paid and organic, you're absolutely right, Shane, that organic, there's a bit of a term that we've used in my team before, which is organic is you throwing something onto a wall and seeing what sticks, because you're not going out to a targeted audience. You're kind of just going out to the masses. And it's not a bad thing. Like I said earlier, organic content can work really well, but it takes investment and time. From a recruitment point of view, the reason why investing time into organic is important is coming back to that, how people make a purchase decision. And that's because people go and look at social media to inform their already existing perceptions of a brand or a product, and in this case, dragon boating or your club. So that's why organic is really important. But if you're really wanting to drive recruitment and those kind of key messages of joining the club or trialing the club, that's when you should start to consider, and on social media, that's when you should start considering boosting a post and putting a little bit of spend behind it and seeing what works. And I wouldn't, you don't have to put large investments in it. Like Shane said, $50 here, but make it, you also don't want to be too targeted. So you don't want to be putting in there, I only want, males who are aged 20 to 35, who are interested in rugby, swimming, but you don't want to be very, very specific. Also geographic. Actually, geographic is a good thing. You don't want to be too specific where basically it's going to become too expensive to target that audience or to kind of get a result. So in that kind of, you need to kind of test the waters and understand how it works in your, I guess, what performs in your region. But geography as well, you can target, let's say, the Newcastle region and things like that. So people will be able to see you're only going to be going out to an audience who's based within that region. You're not going to be targeting, someone in Sydney, because someone in Sydney is probably not going to go drive 3 hours up to Newcastle to give a paddle a try at your club.
The next one was platforms, just at a really high level. LinkedIn is obviously mainly for professionals and businesses. Is it fair to say Instagram is, which I don't even know what that is anymore, like younger people? TikTok, probably really young, so don't go there. And Facebook all in between. So is it fair to say that, depending on what your strategy is, will depend on where you start focusing your investment?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of platforms, I would say breaking them down, Facebook and Instagram are probably going to be your easiest and the cheapest to promote on. LinkedIn is just very expensive in general, but in terms of who's on each platform and what can each be used from a paid perspective, Facebook is very broad. It's quite large. They have millions and millions of users nationally, globally. So everyone's kind of on there if you think about it that way. In terms of where the audience skews, it is predominantly a female-based audience in that it's heavily used by that 35 to 45 category. And also going through COVID, because no one could go to the shop, surprisingly, participation has picked up in that 65 plus category as well. More people are gravitating towards social media for connection in those older categories as well. So what that means from a kind of investment point of view, or where you're wanting to put your dollars, if you're wanting that younger audience, out of Facebook and Instagram, kind of skew more towards Instagram. Facebook's easier to kind of boost posts though as well. I would also say on top of that, obviously you can put categories around it. So if you boost a post on Facebook, you can put, I only want to be targeting 18 to 35-year-olds. So you can put barriers around it. LinkedIn, organically, if you can, have a presence there. But I would only probably say more to your corporate crews, or if you have a club who has a revenue stream for team building activities or things like that, definitely use that as an opportunity, because your corporate audience is who's going to be involved in that. But from a paid perspective, it's not really worth it. I would more encourage your paddlers to share content of, how has paddling made them a better team member, or how has it made them, being a coach transcended in being a better people leader, things like that. In terms of other platforms like TikTok, I love TikTok. I spend way too much time on it. I have to delete it regularly, but it definitely is a younger audience. I would say I'm not very familiar with the paid aspect to TikTok just yet. The algorithm and how it works is very unique to each individual person. People are still trying to define it. It's quite a new platform, but videos if you're going to be sharing content in there, you want to be sharing relevant topical content. There's constant new trends every single day on that platform. So you want to be on top of that. So it's going to take a lot of time commitment. And often with TikTok, the reward, you don't know what's going to come out of it. Some things just go really viral, other things flop. And there's no consistency really between the two. However, if you can do it, give it a go. Snapchat, that's typically a younger audience as well. It's more your, I'd say 17, or like they have even younger on there, but 14 to up to about you kind of 30-year-old category is where you're at with that one. Again, sponsored, I would say an opportunity there is more if you can sponsor, what are they called? Snapchat filters and frames. You can geographically spot them. So let's say you're having a regatta up in Port Stephens, or there's, a regional regatta. You're wanting more involvement and people to participate in it. Your club, if they're hosting the regatta, might build a Snapchat lens or a frame. Lenses are much more expensive, but frames can be quite cheap to build. I think they're about $70 a day, they used to be. And people can find that geographically based and then start using that frame. The only thing is that anyone on Snapchat in that area can access that frame, and they could use it inappropriately, but the risk is quite low.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I've never used that, never heard it, but I've taken note. I've learned something already. Just before I throw it to the floor, just mindful of time, the last thing I've got is for you, what should the clubs, I guess, be mindful of, and where they can, where can they go wrong, or what should they avoid? I mean, if we talked about some of the things that they should be doing, what are some of the things they should be avoiding?
Things to be avoiding, I would say, sharing posts with no videos or images is often that content just doesn't perform as well. Social, think of stop the thumb content. An image is going to help people stop and look. Whereas full-on text heavy is just not going to really do it. I'd also, not having full-on, really long posts, unless it calls for it, unless you're storytelling. But also consider social is an informal environment, but you want to come across as professional because you're still representing your club. And probably my big one no to avoid is when it comes to hashtags, capitalizing the first letter of each word, because it actually helps you read the hashtag better. So, for example, let's say
hashtag,
like a hashtag Pacific Dragons, I would capitalize the P and the D because you can read it better. When it's all lowercase and you can't read it, you don't know what words could come out of that because some words together could have something quite inappropriate. So capitalize each one. I think that's all I can think of the top of my head.
No, that's good. That's good. I think we'll get something out of that. I just want to throw it to the floor now for their questions. I know Pearl's got one. She's actually put it in the chat. And I saw something on Canva as well. So guys, I might throw to you, Pearl. Ramsey, could you unmute everyone?
I'm unmuted. You can hear?
Yep.
Yeah, how do you actually target, when you're paying, how do you choose your target? I don't know how to do that at all.
That's all good. So how you would do it, Pearl, is, and a great question as well, is in the back end, if you were in your business manager version of Facebook, of your Facebook group, you can see how to boost a post, or it'd be in the back end insights area. If you click on that button, it'll kind of open up and it'll show you how you can boost that post and who you can target. And it will include things like interests, demographics, including age, location, gender, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain it without visually showing you, but it might be something like you can step-by-step include in some future resources. It's quite intuitive if you were to go into the back end of Facebook to see how to target. On Instagram, if you were to boost a post, it's a little bit more limited in terms of it'll go out to your audience or out to your followers, out to who your followers are following as well. But we can include some resources into how to do that, and I can send out some links, definitely.
Well, it'll be a little bit like when you online shop and you want to narrow your search down. You can actually use sort of filters, brings it all up. And then at the end, there's a shopping cart. It's a similar, I guess, process to this, where once you click into it, there's a set of questions, and at the end, there's a purchase process towards the end.
That is a very good example, Shane, actually. Very simple. That was a good one.
that explains it. Good. Thank you.
Nice. I know Wendy sent through a comment as well as to how to broaden mail membership, and also the difference between official Facebook websites and then also more informal Facebook sites as well. So Wendy, for your first one in terms of informal and formal posts, these are great. I know our club has an internal page, so it's taking more informal stuff, making an internal group, only group members can see that content. We share heaps of social events, different people just sharing their photos from different regattas. They're great because, like I said before, user generated content. You can ask that person, hey, we want to share this on the external one, and send it out to more people. So that's fantastic. Keep that up. In terms of more mail membership and broadening your reach out to that, consider your content that you're sharing. So does your content represent your target audience? If you're sharing posts of older demographics or older female demographics and you're looking for young males, that's opposite. If I was a young male and I saw that, it'd be like, okay, they're sharing more women, maybe that club's not for me, but I might go to another club who shares more male content. And I'm not saying it's a battle of the sexes here, but naturally, if you think for yourself, if you see that you're being represented, you're more likely to purchase something that you're being represented in, right? And engage with that. So think about that when it comes to your content, as to making sure that your target audience is also within your content, because more people are going to relate to that. Cool. And I think there was also a comment on Canva. Any advice for a first-time user? Give it a go. When you kind of log in, you'll see that they've got a kind of like a searchable feature where you can search different things. If you search social media, it'll come up with a whole lot of different templates of different content. Everything is, editable, and you can kind of move it around. There's different formats for, Instagram or Instagram stories or things like that. They make it really quite simple. Hop on and give it a go. Canva also has some really great videos and resources to step you through as well if you get stuck. There's some really great helpful resources there.
I can add, if you look at Rainbow Region Dragon Boat Club's Facebook page, there's a fair bit of Canva content there.
Nice.
Mm.
That's good.
For those who are not familiar with Canva as well, it's a little bit like a photographer, before had, big cameras and shot some nice photos, and now you use your phone. It's a little bit of that with graphic designing, where you can sort of just jump on Canva and almost become dare I say it, an expert at graphic design. We've built a lot of our stuff. Oh, you're not an expert by no means, but it's a bit like a photographer with their phone, right? But it will help. It will professionalize a lot of the stuff you're doing, as opposed to just dropping it in Word.
Yeah, and the other thing is, as well as they have an app as well as a website. So often, like Shane said, people are taking photos on their phones rather than having to transfer it onto your laptop and things like that. They also have an app that's really quite intuitive to use. So it's quite mobile. So you can just kind of, take the photo, create the content, post it up, you're ready to go. It's quite easy.
Yeah, that's what I do. And use your cropping. Just don't let it be a picture out here. Ensure that you get yourself up tight and bright. It's a term when you're putting pictures in there and so forth. But yeah, keyword tight and bright.
Tight and bright, I like that.
Is that the hashtag as well? Just the last minute, is there any other questions? I got the one, and it's probably pretty.
I have the question there. Okay, I put it up in the chat, which was about paying off. It was the last term you used. Oh crap, where is it now?
Yeah, it was on one of the chats.
Yeah, paying off. What is this? What is your measure of paying off?
Great. I would say that in terms of measuring your success will come down to where you are in this journey of, using social media for your club. That could be if you're starting out, it could be measure for success as you gaining 100 followers, within a year. That might be really achievable for some and not for others. Or it might be, if you're already at quite a few, 1,000 followers, maybe it's not about how to, improve followers. It's about how to improve conversion. How are you setting up your social media platforms to improve that, driving traffic to your website, things like that. So success is going to look different for everyone, and paying off is going to look different for everyone. And more what I mean is that people get stuck in numbers. And this is, Instagram took away the number of likes because people get stuck in, 50 people liked my photo, so obviously it performed well. Not necessarily always the case. So looking into the insights and seeing how your content performs and actively working on that, and what performs really well, how do I make it better? Or the stuff that's not working well, how do I make that better as well? Or do I just stop doing that? Over time, continuously doing that, you're going to start to see better engagement, or what those kind of key success and goals are that's going to start paying off.
Okay. Yeah. So it's those goals that you're working on.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jade, thank you. And I guess thank you to everyone online following this. What we're actually going to do is Jade's built a social media toolkit that will, and DBNSW has also updated the social media policy, which is the last one I think was released in 2011 or 2012. So very, very timely. So following this, a social media toolkit will be accompanied with these slides, as well as a recording of this video. So please continue to hashtag share a lot of this stuff, because ultimately we're trying to help our members get better at these various topics. But again, thank you for your support. Thank you, Jade, for taking the volunteering and taking the time to take everyone through. As I mentioned, this interview will be online on the DBNSW website very shortly as an upskill resource. So check it out at the dbnsw.org.au website, and we'll continue to post the various things on the various channels as long as Jade approves. So guys, thank you again for coming online, and Jade, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
No.